Safety. It's a big thing in the workshop. If you don't feel safe doing something or you just don't feel comfortable, don't do it. You're the only person who can keep you safe. And if you don't do it, no one else can.
Good morning. Richard Ford here, coming to you from Nova Scotia, Canada. Now, I've had a few lathes here in my shop, metal lathes, and the last one I had was a South Bend, and a good friend of mine talked me into selling it to him, and I was looking to make some space in my shop. It was getting very crowded, and I wanted to play with a little laser burner, so I needed some space, so it seemed like a good idea. Well, since then I've had a number of projects come up that it would have been really handy to have the ability to machine some steel to make little mandrels and things like that. Milling, of course, is also a very useful thing if you're able to mill. So I got thinking about it, and I had seen on the internet, cross slides for sale, so I got looking at them, and eventually I ordered one, and I'm in the process right now of fitting it to my wood lathe, to my Powermatic, and I thought it would be an opportunity to make a video in case if it works well, then others may want to do the same thing. Anyway, here's the cross slide that I bought. It cost me about $180 Canadian, something like that. 187, I think it was. And I'm in the process now of fitting it to the Powermatic. So I'll show you the cross slide. Okay, here's the cross slide. You can see there's one slide and there's the other. Now when I got it, this handle was on the other side, and I thought I'll see if I can turn it around because it would be more convenient this way for me. So I took it all apart, and just as well I did, I found the little bolts that were securing the nut that this lead screw goes through were only in about a thread and a half. So had I just tightened them up, I would have likely pulled the thread out of the cast iron. So I put 4 new bolts in, and I drilled and tapped everything a little bit deeper so we have good secure. Fortunately, this lead screw was right down the middle, so I could just turn it around and put this on this end. Everything else seems very good. The machining, I have yet to find out if it really is square, but it looks square. The machining and everything is, for the price, very good. It was just those 4 bolts holding the nuts on that could have been a problem. So far so good. Now I'm going to lift it up, and I'll show you the base that I'm making to mount this on. So here I've raised the cross slide, and you can see that there's 4 holes in it, in the base, and I've got 4 carriage bolts coming through this 2-inch thick block of wood here that I will bolt it on with. So now I'm going to move it out the way, and then we'll come back and I'll talk about this base that I've made for it. There, with the cross slide out the way, we can see this base a little easier. Okay, this is a 2-inch thick block of ash, and I've offset the block this way a little bit, about, I would say, that's the center there, about 2 inches offset this way, because when you're turning or something, you'll be working on this side of the whatever you're turning, and so you'll have the tool post over here. So I just thought I should offset it a little bit. You can see here's the 4 carriage bolts coming through from the bottom, And these are two big T-nuts here that you just turn them around and then clamp it to the ways of the bed. Now I'm just going to take this base off. Now before we go too far, we'll mark which end is which. Put an X there and an X here. Okay, so I put it back on the right way. Now because I've made a wooden key, wood is not stable. It will expand and contract. So making a key that just fits perfectly is difficult. In wood, it would never stay like that. So what I've made instead is a little wedge here that you can see when I turn this around and pull it up. You see how it goes further in this way? So that'll be like a wedge on the one side of the key, and it will push this key, this side of the key, tight against the ways of the bed. So I don't have to have a tight fitting key, but this edge is exactly square with these two edges. So when I put this down there and I turn this, tighten it, and it doesn't take a lot of tightening because it's quite a small angle, it pushes this edge over flush, and the piece is very tight. The base is very tight on the wedge, so I can repeat that position. Very repeatable. So if I line up the top, the cross slide, so that it's square with everything before when I tighten it down, I can be able to put this back on, tighten this back up, and have it accurate each time. That's my plan. So this is just a cover. It's a little bit narrower than the key to go on there, so that gives some support to this when it's upside down. Okay, right, what else can I tell you? I think that's it. I'm planning on painting this with something to try and make it a little bit waterproof. Some shellac or something or other. Maybe a varnish. So that I will, of course, be using water cutting solution when I'm turning on steel, and so it would get wet. Now it's big enough and thick enough, I don't think it would really matter too much, but and I could always cover it with a piece of plastic. Maybe that's a good idea, just have a piece of plastic or slip over it. We'll see, but I think I will paint all the wood, make some stops on here so that when you lock it up, it comes round maybe and comes against something here, and then like that. All we need perhaps is a screw in there, so it comes around when you're tightening it up and locks, and when you're loosening it, it comes straight so you can lift it out. Yeah, simple. Okay, so I've received the cross slide. I'm working on the base for it. I have ordered on order a tool post, quick release, quick setup tool post that will go on top of the cross slide, and also a vertical sliding way, like a 90-degree way with a little vise on it. I think it's going to be a little bit small, but it will do. It will do for starting out. I may have to end up buying an angle plate. That's more for milling and things. This is the project so far. I'll bring you back when we've progressed a little bit further and have more to show you. Okay, see you later. Now, as you can see, I've added a couple of side panels to the base here. Whoops. Just undo those. There. Now, these side panels do a couple of things. One, on the front here, it gives me a nice square edge to pull a crossfeed table over and against the edge. On the other side, I had to put a spacer in there because otherwise it was fouling the back of the Powermatic. So these don't hold it at all. It's the key that positions it, as we saw before. Now in this side I put two of these things. I don't know what they're called, but they end up giving you a steel thread. You can see there's one there and one there. And the purpose of that is so that I can take a threaded bolt here, a bolt, and tighten it in, see it coming through here, to push the cross slide over into this edge here. So that way every time I take it off, I'll put it back on, I can be sure that it's back in the same position. The other purpose of these two side panels is to provide a foot to put this down on. So when I put it down, it's sitting on these and not on whatever's the lowest thing on the bottom. So they become a foot for me to store it, put it down, and keep it up off the ground on a shelf or what have you. So we're all ready now really to paint it. It sits on there. Oh, I have to put this back in. Just took it out for painting, but you can see my little wedge is nothing very clever, just got a tapped hole in it. Threaded rod goes in it. Threaded rod goes down through this hole here, and the wedge fits in its little housing. And you can see that when this gets down and it tightens up, it pulls that up and wedges it in between the ways here. So I'll put it together just to show you how it goes together. Then I'm just going to take it apart and paint it. Now I'll move the camera while I bring the oh, I think I can squeeze it past, maybe. Yeah. Wedged out the way, take the sling off. There, so we want it back against this edge here. So we can tighten it against there with these bolts. I'd put a little wrench on them just to give them a little tension. There. So now centering the gap around the holes. There. somewhere here I've got the nuts that go on these carriage bolts. You put 1, 2, and then 3 and 4, and tighten that down. So now it's fairly thick, fairly firm. So as far as the base, I think I'm there. Just got to paint it, and then I'll assemble the whole thing and it will stay together from there on. To move it about along the bed of the lathe, just need to undo these 2 bolts here. And this one here. So that's the big T-nuts. Okay, then loosen this, give it a little tap to knock the wedge out, and then there we can position it wherever we want it along the bed of the lathe, and then tighten up the wedge. Tighten up the 2 T-nuts. Now when I get the tool post, I have a tool in it, I'll be able to, I'm very lucky I have a metal lathe here, a metal chuck here, it's a 3-jaw, I would have preferred a 4, but this one was free, given to me by a friend. At one point I was doing some work for him, and he had this chuck which fits right on my Powermatic. It's a 1 1/4 by 8 threads in it. Perfect. So I'm going to disassemble it, paint it, maybe 2 coats, and the next stage will be when I have the tool post and I can mount it. I may have to put a spacer block underneath it. I don't know yet. Till I get it, I'll get it, and then I'll set it up so that when the tool is sort of in a good position on the tool post, it's at the center height. Then I'm going to give it a try, and I'll bring you back for that when I get the tool post on it, and we try turning a little bit of steel. I can't think why it wouldn't work, but you never know. I mean, my old South Bend was a very substantial lathe, and it made it look easy. We'll see how this works. So there it is. I guess the proof will be in the pudding. See you then. Bye now. Well, here we are, back in the shop again, and another piece of the equipment has arrived. That's this little tiny tool post. It's the kind of tool post that quick change, but it's very much smaller than I thought it was. But anyway, it will prove whether or not we can cut metal on a wood lathe. I've mounted it temporarily on a couple of 1, 2, 3 blocks and a couple of parallel strips here to try and get the right height. And I have a block of steel in the lathe, mild steel, that's been cut on the saw, but it's about 1/4 inch off of being square, and I want to see if I can cut this and square this end up. This will become the block that the tool post mounts on. So here we are. I'm going to move the camera a little bit closer. Okay. Give it a little shot here. About 325. mounting's not quite robust enough. The tool is moving. Well, I think we answered the question, can you cut steel on a wood lathe? And we'll take that piece out and show it to you. So, this was a real test. The temporary mounting was pretty wobbly. It's not very solid, and the overhang of the piece out of the lathe is quite far. So all in all, I'm very pleased with the result, which shows that you can, where is it? You can turn steel on a wood lathe, on my wood lathe anyway. There's the proof. nice finish. Eight, 4, 4. 852. So it's bigger here, bigger there. So in my setup I need to shim this side out just a little bit if I want to get a parallel cut. Eight, 5, 1. 8, 4, 5. That's 6/1000ths of an inch bigger here. Eight, 51. 845. So I'm going to shim this side out a little bit, and then we'll try it again. Not a bad looking finish. See how parallel we are now. I shimmed out this back edge about 20 thou. Try and make it 15, 16 and a little bit. Oh! Wow. That's fantastic. Nice and parallel now. Right on. Yeah, I'll do it on this thing so you can see it. Hold it tight and tighten up the lock nut. See what we've got. 818. 818. Yeah, fantastic. Well, who knew? So we've seen we can do cross face here, we can do parallel. So we could do boring if we had a boring tool in there. I guess we can turn steel on this lathe. Can't take a big cut, but then the tool post isn't that big. But it's perfect for the little things I want to do now and then when I need to do something. I'll be able to do them whenever I want. So I made these little boards. See, I've got some magnets in the end, so they'll just sit on there to cover up the this open area here where the lead screw is, just to stop the chips going in. So I just found this one works just as well like that. Stops the chips bouncing back. Well folks, there it is, proof of the pudding. Okay, I've mounted my little vertical slide in a vise, and I put that piece I just turned in the vise just to see if we can do a little milling. What do you know? There, I've milled a nice little flat on there. Wow. Okay, so it's not a metal lathe and it's not a metal mill, but it will allow me to do the little things I want to do, and I can truly machine steel on this lathe now. There.